Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
So, we got some stuff to share with you guys, and we are also in the process of getting some direct channeling, answering some really fascinating questions that we've had over the years, that trying to get clarity on the situation here on planet Earth. You probably are familiar, if you've been following our channel for a while, that we've talked about giants in Patagonia. Down at the tip of Chile and Argentina, there's ancient maps, 400 or 500 years old, that show giants down there in Patagonia, which again is Chile and Argentina, down towards the southern tip of South America. How about, have you ever heard of pygmies up at the North Pole? Have you ever heard of lands that don't show up on maps up in the North Pole? Oh, actually, there's a fun little trick you could do with Google Earth too, where you could see some actual cutting and splicing. I will probably throw that in the next video just to show you guys, because you can see where they cut a whole bunch of stuff out. How about this? What's that? What's that right at the North Pole? Is it a magnetic rock, perhaps? Yeah, actually, it is. It's a black rock. Black rock at the North Pole, magnetic. What are we talking about? So, this is what again has happened is a couple of our long-term people have been following our channel for years, 5-7 years. It both kind of said the same thing. Are you sure about the technologies? And we're not just witnessing normal Earth changes. There's normal Earth changes, yes, but there's also an awful lot of technology that's in play. In fact, again, our whole history is a fabrication for the most part. And we are a species with amnesia. I did a video on that like 8 years ago, species with amnesia. I know Robert Seffer has done a video on the same title, made a book by it. When you look to the moon, right, have you ever really reflected on the layout of the lands on the moon, the craters? Because some have made note that it looks very similar to a degree to what we know of the Earth, the known portion of Earth, but with a lot more land. A lot more land. Then we've talked also about the German flat Earth map. And while we do not believe the Earth is flat, and it's not going through a vacuum either, space is more like an ocean. And it even has currents, like the ocean has currents that ships will travel in. But space is more akin to an ocean. It's more like, again, interstitial fluid, the fluid in between cells in the human body. This is again part of that as above, so below. This is just simply the way the universe works. The universe is created for life to abound and explore, and there's tons of life out there. Tons of life out there. So in case you hadn't seen this, I wanted to show you that, because again, this look right here, this goes along with what we've gotten from the guides. What we've gotten from the guides is what they tell us is Earth is only about a quarter of what is Earth. Earth is much larger than what they tell us. So if Earth is really like 4 times larger, then that would explain why when you go and do measurements and stuff, there's not enough angle to account for the size of the Earth being as small as they say it is. And we're also in a concave portion. Where we are, it's kind of indented inward. Think again like the Death Star and that indentation. It's almost like a satellite dish indentation. Well, that's kind of like the section of Earth that we're in right here. It's actually a concave piece because, again, Earth is a remnant of a much bigger planet, Tiamat, that was destroyed in an intergalactic battle. Listen, closely to our myths and legends, and you see they are all about the extraterrestrial, interdimensional wars that we are right in the middle of. What do we have right now? We have a small period of respite from these wars. There's been a treaty. We shared with you guys. There was a treaty put in place. Now we got more definitive timelines, which we'll be sharing on a future video, probably a Patreon and membership video. And we're just going to try to get more information for that to clarify some more. But fascinating stuff, because the treaty, it went up. There's no treaty in place right now. It ended on December solstice, June 21st of this year, June 21st, 2025. Now, April 8th, 2024 was the eclipse, and that was the marker of the end of the Kali Yuga. All this is what we have gotten directly from our guides and through Cindy's channeling. Some of which is full trance channel, other is in the partial trance. When I was curious about this, because we had talked about this in the past, 1908 Tunguska event, it was just a fascinating event that happened here in Siberia. You see, this is in a pretty far away area, not loaded with people. But this was a massive explosion between 3 and 5 megatons. It was huge. It felled 80 million trees over an area of 2,150 kilometers squared, or 830 square miles of forest. And eyewitness accounts suggest up to 3 people may have died. Thankfully, this was not over a major city. The explosion is attributed to a meteor airburst. Now, airburst is also a technique that's used with weaponry. There are nuclear weapons that will airburst before they hit the ground, and they actually are more lethal that way. So keep that in mind. And now they say it was a stony asteroid about 160 to 200 feet wide that exploded. The asteroid approached from the east-southeast with a relatively high speed of 98,004 kilometers an hour. Yeah, Mach 80. The incident's classified as an impact, but it exploded over the surface. It's the largest impact event on Earth in recorded history. But yeah, there are much larger impacts believed to have happened in prehistoric times. Randall Carlson has done great work talking about what I believe was truly a major act of war here on planet Earth. The major Younger Dryas extinction event that wiped out an enormous portion of the life on the planet. And in fact, there's a layer of iridium, which is an extremely rare heavy metal, that we see deposited all around the entirety of our known portion of the planet. And this shows there was, again, some sort of non-terrestrial explosion that left this non-terrestrial debris all over our entire surface of our living space here on planet Earth. And this was, again, about 12,000 years ago. So, yes, we can look at that one event, and then you have people that conclude every 12,000 years there's an extinction level event that wipes us totally out. The reality is there are natural cycles, like we're talking about the cycles of the Yugas, which are natural. But what happens is, when the cycle of the Kali Yuga comes on, it brings us to a low enough frequency where you have an interaction of very, very aggressive demonic entities that can actually infiltrate our area, our living space, so to speak. And they have done so in the past. And they've done so on more than one cycle of the Yugas. This is what we've gotten, again, through channeling. So, if you're to look for evidence of this, you're going to have to look beyond what's given to you by science, which is, again, trying to convince humans that there's nobody else here but us. Oh, they might put it out there. Little gray guys crashed in Roswell and these type of things. But they don't want to ever give you anything definitive because it actually was kind of against the law that was laid down with the treaty. Because what the treaty was about was that Homo sapiens was geoengineered from different ET species to be utilized as a slave race, as is said when you look to the Sumerian tales. They viewed us as a slave race. It wasn't just one ET race that was doing this. There was many different ET races. So, this is part of seeing the bigger picture. If you're talking angels and fallen angels, you're really missing the whole boat. Because, again, angel just translates to messenger, ultimately. And there were so many beings coming and going from the earth not long ago, and even now, it's just hidden a little bit better, that, there's just too many to classify. And we will work on putting out a whole series of videos on the different ones that we've encountered and that we have knowledge of, different ET species, interdimensional beings. So, this was at 7:17 a.m. local time. You had natives and settlers. They observed a bluish light nearly as bright as the sun moving across the sky, leaving a thin trail. Closer to the horizon, there was a flash producing a billowing cloud, followed by a pillar of fire that cast a red light on the landscape. The pillar split in two and faded, turning to black. About 10 minutes later, there was a sound similar to artillery fire. Eyewitnesses closer to the explosion reported that the source of the sound moved from the east to the north of them. The sounds were accompanied by a shockwave that knocked people off their feet and broke windows hundreds of kilometers away. The explosion registered at seismic stations across Eurasia, and airwaves from the blast were detected in Germany, Denmark, Croatia, and the UK, as far away as Latvia, Dutch East Indies, and Washington, D.C. It's estimated that in some places the resulting shockwave was equivalent to an earthquake measuring 5.0 on the Richter scale. Over the next few days and nights, skies in Asia and Europe were aglow. Over the next few days, they were aglow. There are contemporaneous reports of brightly lit photographs being successfully taken at midnight without the aid of flashbulbs. Does anybody think that's strange? This was in Sweden and Scotland. It's been theorized that this sustained glowing effect was due to light passing through high-altitude ice particles that had formed at extremely low temperatures as a result of the explosion. I could feel the smile on Cindy's face right there. A phenomenon decades later was reproduced by space shuttles. Yes, so, you have different people giving what they had experienced. This one person says, I was sitting by a house near a trading post facing north. I suddenly saw that directly to the north, the sky split in two and fire appeared high and wide over the forest. The split in the sky grew larger, and the entire northern side was covered with fire. At that moment, I became so hot I couldn't bear it. It was as if my shirt was on fire. From the northern side, when the fire came strong heat. I wanted to tear off my shirt and throw it down, but the sky shook closed and a strong thump sounded, and I was thrown a few meters. I lost my senses for a moment. My wife ran out and led me to the house. After that, such noise came as if rocks were falling or cannons were firing. The earth shook and I was on the ground. I pressed my head down, fearing the rocks would smash it. When the sky opened up, hot wind raced between the houses like from cannons, which left traces in the ground like pathways, and it damaged some crops. Later we saw that many windows were shattered, and in the barn a part of an iron lock snapped. Here's another testimony. We had a hut by the river with my brother Chekarin. We were sleeping. Suddenly we both woke up at the same time. Somebody shoved us. We heard whistling, felt a strong wind. Chekarin said, "Can you hear all those birds flying overhead?" We were both in the hut. Couldn't see what was going on outside. Suddenly I got shoved again, this time so hard I fell to the ground. I got scared. Chekarin got scared too. We started crying out for father, mother, brother. Nobody answered. There was no noise beyond the hut. We could hear trees falling down. Chekarin and I got out of our sleeping bags, wanted to run out, but then the thunder struck. It was the first thunder. The earth began to move and rock. The wind hit our hut, knocked it over. My body was pushed down by sticks, but my head was in the clear. Then I saw wonder. Trees were falling. Branches were on fire. It became mighty bright. How can I say this? As if there was a second sun. My eyes were hurting. I couldn't even close them. It was like what the Russians call lightning, and immediately there was a loud thunderclap. This was the second thunder. The morning was sunny. There were no clouds. Our sun was shining brightly as usual. And then suddenly there came a second one. Chekarin and I had some difficulty getting out from under the remains of our hut. We then saw that above, but in a different place, there was another flash, and loud thunder came. There was a third thunderstrike. Winds came again, knocked us off our feet, struck the fallen trees. We looked at the fallen trees, watched the tops get snapped off, watched the fires. Suddenly, Chekarin yelled, "Look up," and pointed with his hand. I looked there and saw another flash, and it made another thunder, but the noise was less than before. This was the fourth strike like normal thunder. Now I remember well, there also was one more thunderstrike, but it was small and somewhere far away where the sun goes to sleep. And there are other accounts of this episode. So, yeah, you could say it was just a random rock that came in. Sure, it was just a meteor. nothing here really to see. We were just lucky we dodged one. It left some marks that are there for posterity, and caused a lot of damage. But it could have been so much worse if it was in a populated area. But then, what is the real reality here? Why doesn't anybody say, could this have been some sort of extraterrestrial battle? Was it an ET war? Was it, some sort of conflict going on? What was really the case? When we look to Nuremberg, 1561, there was an actual massive battle witnessed with exactly what we would see almost, in Star Wars. You had motherships releasing drones. You had drones shooting each other out of the sky. You had all sorts of chaos, people running in fear, things coming down to the ground in explosions. This was all very well documented in the year 1561. Oh, yeah, this was a literal, truly UFO battle. These were unidentified flying objects that were fighting with each other and taking each other out. This is part of that bigger picture. And again, the hard part for humans to understand is that everything from our mainstream religions, the political ideologies that we are given, the political systems, the monetary system, everything that we have has been given to us by ETs and interdimensional beings in order to, in some ways, keep themselves in line with the treaty, because they had to disappear. They had to hide themselves because, there was too much interaction. Humans were not evolving in a free and organic way, I should say.
Mm-mm. No, they weren't. They weren't able to. There was too much disruption. There was too much confusion. And karmically speaking, that was becoming more and more of a problem that was obvious to these different ET races, because they were further advanced. They did know better. So this is where they had to do something. So something was done and a truce was set in place, and this truce has just recently come up, and they're all kind of waiting to see what the other is going to do. I mean, from what I see, I think they're just kind of watching each other to see if one is going to show up. If one shows up and shows themselves, the others might, or they're working on a new treaty right now to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, again, there are more benevolent beings that want to see us develop on our own. Again, we don't have the entirety of Earth to ourselves. There's a lot of land that is 3D that is not accessible to humans. It's off limits to us. And then there's other parts of Earth which literally has up more energetic dimensional barriers that you would not be able to access until you're of a certain high enough frequency. So what I find fascinating is, the numbers never made sense to me. They never made sense, but we are getting some clarity on that. And, we are a species with amnesia, but we haven't been asleep for as long as we think. That's the big thing. We have not been asleep for as long as we think. If you're somebody that's done a lot of research like me, or like a Randall Carlson, and so many of these other great researchers out there that realize things like, again, I think of Mauro Bellino and Paul Davids, who, again, get deep into the Bible. Then you all of a sudden understand these are ET tales. Hey, this is not what we were told. No, we were told those stories in order to kind of send us off. Like when you look to Tolkien and The Lord of the Rings, well, it's time for the elves to leave. Well, the reality is it was time for all of them to leave because they were here with us. Many, 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 many different beings were here with us the entire time. And, did they fight over us? In some ways, they kind of did. They all wanted to control us and use us for their different objectives. And others were like, just leave the humans alone. Just leave them alone, please.
Yeah, it got kind of messy. And from what I got, it was the battle over Nuremberg, which really was the waking factor that, okay, something needs to be done, because they all knew that they're in the hot seat karmically, and they're not getting out of it. They are absolutely not getting out of this karmic disruption that they have created. Humans need to grow organically and in and of themselves, for spiritual purposes and karmic purposes. So here we are. We have that. We're trying to get more information on it. I think they have us surrounded in, science books and science topics, and how they put things in this scientific box. And that's not how we're getting our information. If I see it, I say it. And I do this to the very best of my ability. And hopefully it will shed some light on giving us some more understanding and some truth. Because if you're looking for truth through a place that has high numbers and a lot of popularity, I don't know, I just don't trust it.
It means it's officially okayed by the system.
Yeah, it's officially okayed by the system.
Yeah, when you see channels that got big views in the past, and like I look over at our brother Arwayne Steiger, who's taking a little R&R today, with his lovely wife, and well-deserved. You look at some of his past videos, just like ours, hundreds of thousands of views. And what do you get now? Maybe 1,500, 2,000, 3,000. Yeah, because they can't have the real story being out there. And this is where, some of the channels do a good job at not giving you answers, just laying it out there and saying, well, I don't know. What do you think? But then again, you get people that think you can't know what's really going on. Yes, you can. You can find out. And again, develop your abilities to perceive for yourself. So that's easier said than done, because you're going to have to, in most cases, change your lifestyle, get off of all the mind-altering substances. Some of them can open doors to get glimpses of things, but it's always best to do things naturally. Our natural abilities vastly outshine those things that might give us a temporary little high, so to speak. So, again, develop your ability to go within. All the answers have always been within. They're certainly not in, constantly revised history and textbooks. Those are there to convince you of the illusion. They're not there to give you the truth.
Yeah, I wonder sometimes when it comes to the school science books, I wonder how many times they've been rewritten, think of all the schools and all the different grades and how many gazillions of science books are out there because, they thought something was true, but now they know it's not.
Yeah, absolutely. So, this was kind of the last straw, and this was only in 1561. This is not that long ago. Not that long ago at all. Again, be joyful. It is actually a blessing to be in these bodies, because again, we are already eternal spirits. There's no dogma that's going to give you eternal life. You already have eternal life, so it's just eternal life moving from one vehicle to the next. That is the original intention. Because again, we are spiritual beings having a temporary physical incarnation as humans on this planet that has been so messed up for so long because of interference from ETs. But again, not all ETs are bad. There are a lot more good out there than bad. In reality, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we will be welcome to the galactic neighborhood at some point in time. When will that be? Well, we'll see. It might be tomorrow, or it might not be in our lifetimes. But individuals can have contact if you try. If you reach out, they'll contact you if you reach out. People have made tons of videos on that. Our brother Joe, Dr. Joe Mara, he said he rants. They did experiments with that all the time. Every night they put the intention out, somebody would show up. Orbs, ships. We did the same thing in the desert too. We've had thousands of experiences, and it's something that could almost happen on a daily basis if you are open to really truly clearing out your energy field, stopping the GMOs, eating healthy, developing a mind-body-spirit practice, having patience and dedication. It takes work. It's not just something you can blink your eyes, snap your fingers, or take a pill for.
Indeed.
We thank you guys. We welcome you again over on Patreon. Exclusive videos there. Also here on YT as well. Membership has exclusive videos too. Source bless and namaste.
Namaste.